Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are really excited to talk to you about how to instill some customer loyalty tips for your gym. We've put together a lot of interesting content here. As you guys know, we as Amelia absolutely love the cheer and gymnastics space. It's truly our bread and butter. We interact with hundreds of gym owners on a day-to-day basis or over the course of a year. We're constantly attending trade shows. We've learned a lot from you guys, and we think that we know quite a bit about the industry at this point. So we're pretty happy to share some of our insights with you and give you some actual tips on how you can improve your customer loyalty. To go through some of our content today, well, before we start, I might as well introduce myself and Jer. So I'm Dan. I'll introduce Jer actually. I work with Jer every single day because the way I see it, Jer's truly he's our product ninja. That's the title that we've given him, but he's really our eyes and ears into the market, into the gym market, with whether it's cheer, gymnastics, ninja, whatever it is. He speaks to hundreds of people every single year. He's attended tons of trade shows. He's spoken to many of you on the phone. He's visited your gyms, and he really, really understands the needs and realities of you guys. So I work with him to gather these insights out of his brain and use them to improve our product and to improve the way that we communicate with you.
Thank you, Dan. That was very generous. I'll try to introduce you as generously as you did. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm excited to be here. As Dan said, I'm the one on the ground. I'm the one going to trade shows almost every single month now, speaking with hundreds of gyms. And I come back with what I've learned, and I kind of just throw that all at Dan. He figures out how to make sense of that and actually paint a picture, sometimes literally, as you'll see in this webinar, but to paint a picture of what we're trying to say and make sure we're speaking the same language as our gyms. And so that's what I go to Dan for.
Thank you, Jer. So just to give you guys a bit of a heads up, this is what our agenda is going to look like for today. So we're going to start off by explaining what exactly customer loyalty is. And after we do that, we're going to kind of explain why customer loyalty is important, and specifically why it's important to you as a gym owner, as a business owner, as a front or back office admin. Then we're going to explain a bit of a more theoretical concept called the emotional curve. But don't worry, we're going to make sense of this theory and we're going to relate it back to you. We're going to give you a couple cool examples to illustrate what it is and how this actually relates to the typical gym. And then we're going to identify some opportunities in this curve for how you can improve your customer loyalty. And we're actually going to give you some quick and easy wins and some tools that you guys can implement at your gym to improve your customer loyalty and your customers' happiness at the end of the day. So to start off, what is a loyal customer? So think of it as this. A loyal customer is someone that consistently chooses your gym or your services, your activities over the other gyms in your community, or even over other alternative offerings that exist in your community. If you think of it, you guys can probably drive a couple miles and you'll stumble upon some other gyms, some other types of fitness related activities or recreational activities. And ultimately, a loyal customer is someone that no matter what will keep coming back to your gym over those other ones that might be a couple miles away. And if you think about it, if you operate a cheer or a gymnastics gym, people could be attending other types of activities as well. If a parent is signing up their kids for the first time, there's really nothing locking them into that particular activity. They could be testing it out other things. They could be joining a swim club or signing up their kids for swimming lessons or an after school program. And one of my favorite examples, which you might not even necessarily think of, but YouTube actually is kind of indirectly in competition with you guys now. And the perfect example that I have to illustrate this is really my niece. She's 10 years old and she absolutely adores dancing. She takes 3 different types of dance classes, and one of the types that she's actually not taking is hip hop. And the way that she learns about hip hop in her day to day is just by watching YouTube videos at home. She'll literally put on a video, figure out a how to, and then start practicing in her bedroom or in her living room. And then, we'll have a family dinner and she'll put on a show for everyone. showing what she's learned. And to be honest, it's a thing that kids are doing now. Everyone has access to this and whatnot. So really, a loyal customer is someone that will choose attending your gym over another activity in your community, a competitive gym, or even YouTube videos at home. Why is customer loyalty important? So I could probably go on talking about this for an hour in and of itself, but really we've come up with 3 key examples to highlight this and why it's important to you as a gym owner, as a business owner, as an operator, whoever you are. So the first point is that it's essentially much easier to keep existing customers than find new ones. I'm sure you've all been through this before. Finding new customers is time consuming, it's heavy, it's expensive. It involves marketing programs and offering free trials and tours of your facilities. It takes a lot of time, and theoretically that time could be spent improving your programming or hiring other coaches to help out, things like that. If you have loyal customers and they keep on coming back, your business almost begins to serve itself in a way where you don't need to invest all of this effort in wowing new people and winning them over. Of course, you will always continue to try and win over new clients and get new participants and customers and attract new families to your gym, but it's always very healthy to maintain a healthy proportion of your business that are return customers and loyal customers that keep coming back. Second, loyal customers have this amazing habit of sharing the good news with their friends. And I can honestly tell you that word of mouth can be the best, or in some circumstances, actually the worst form of marketing for your business. Happy customers will go tell their friends. They'll interact with other families at their kids' schools. They'll get their friends to sign up their kids for activities as well at the same facility because everyone loves being surrounded by their friends. And actually, Jer has an interesting example of this.
I'm case in point of this example. Is I've played hockey and soccer my whole life, and as an adult, the only teams I've really joined are teams that my friends are already playing on. And sometimes I'm even driving further or paying more to join those teams, truly simply because of my friends are there, they're happy, they want me to join them, and that's enough for me.
So that leads me to my last point, which is that loyal customers actually just aren't as sensitive to pricing. If someone knows and loves your business, if their friends go to your gym and their friends' kids go to your gym and they're all in the same class, if they love what you offer, if they love the lessons that their kids are learning, they're not going to be as concerned about the price that they're paying because they understand the value of what you're providing. So let's say down the line, theoretically, a couple years from now, you need to raise your prices by a few dollars. Your loyal customers probably won't think twice, as opposed to unloyal customers that could start identifying other gyms or other businesses around the corner a few miles away. They might start looking around. The loyal customers are the ones that are going to come back because they're obsessed with what you offer. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and this is some food for thought. I'd urge you to think about these things because it's some provocative questions that can kind of give you a bit of a health check on your own gym and on your business. So to start off, can you confidently say that each of your customers regularly comes back? Do they return to your business? Do they buy activities year over year? Are they signing up their kids again and bringing them back for higher levels or for other related activities? Are they doing that? Next, can you confidently say that your customers actively encourage others like their friends, their family members to join your gym? Is referrals a big part of your business? That's a really, really strong indicator of your customer loyalty. Like I said, if people are passionate about what you offer, they're gonna refer their friends and their family. So can you safely say that your customers are doing that?
The third question is also interesting. It's something I hear almost every single time I'm talking to a gym. Every season, every year, for whatever reason, if you consider raising your tuition, to upgrade equipment, to hire a new coach, or to upgrade your registration software, wink, wink, whatever reason you have to increase your tuition, do you confidently feel all of your members would re-enroll, without thinking twice about it?
So those are some kind of provocative questions to ask yourself to really kick off this exercise and figure out where you stand right now. And this is where I'm going to get nerdy because I love statistics and I'm crazy about numbers. So I'm going to leave you with this tip. that retaining 3% more of your customers can actually reduce your entire overall cost by 10%. This is factually proven. It's widely known across, I mean, I'm a marketer, but it's widely known across marketing and across businesses as well. And especially in a really high touch industry like the ones in which you guys operate. So in a gymnastics or a cheer studio or a gym where you're very reliant on these high touch engagements and coaching exercises and things like that, retaining your customers can bring down your overall costs by 10%. Jared, why do you think that is?
It's honestly a hugely important stat. It goes a very long way. Think of all the energy and effort you're putting into gaining new members, right? Facebook ads, Google ads, if you're not doing them, you definitely want to consider that. But free trials, you give them the trial week or even a trial month. I've seen free tours around your facility to walk around and really sell them on what you're doing. Obviously, tryouts at competitive teams. You're doing a lot to make sure your members are happy and actually sign up. You obviously want to keep those members long term so that you don't have to keep doing that every single year.
The way that I see this is that ultimately it's more expensive to date people than be in a relationship. If you think about it, when you're dating, you take them out for a nice dinner, you go to a restaurant, crack a bottle of wine. These are all costly things. And once you get into a relationship, you can be a bit more comfortable, and things start to take a mind of their own, and you start cooking dinner at home as opposed to going to the expensive restaurant. So I'm going to move into the emotional curve. So this is kind of what I was saying. It's a bit theoretical, but fear not. We're going to relate this all back to you, and we're going to give you two separate examples to really make sense of this for you and show you how it really impacts your day-to-day. So whether or not you think about it, whenever each of us do business with any type of business, whether it's a store, another gym, your workout facility, whatever it is, at every point in that journey, while we interact with that business, we experience different emotions. So sometimes, you're at an emotional low where you're frustrated, or sometimes they'll wow you with their amazing service and you're at an emotional high and you feel super passionate about that business. The emotional curve is a way to map out the way that your customers feel throughout their relationship with your gym. So it's everything, we'll walk you through this, but it's everything from the time that they meet you to when they discover your offerings, your activities, and all the way until you bring their kids to a competition. So it's really all of these touch points through the journey, but the emotional curve is a way of identifying your customers' emotions, how they actually feel while they work with your business and while their kids are signed up for your activities. So to highlight this example, to highlight this with an example, I'm gonna bring it back to something that I'm pretty sure we're all pretty familiar with. It's a business called IKEA. We've all been there, I'm sure. We know that IKEA it's exciting, but it's an emotional roller coaster at the same time. So I'm gonna kind of walk you through this example. Obviously, it's not a gym, but don't worry, we're gonna give you a gym example very shortly. So to begin, IKEA, their brand promise, this is what they have specifically identified as what they want their main offering to be. And guys, I'm not inventing this myself. This is literally on their website, so you can go search for it and find it. Their brand promise is to offer functional home furnishings at low prices so that anyone can afford them. So really functional furniture or furnishings at low prices. They want anyone to be able to walk into their store and buy whatever they want. How do they do it? Now, this is not on their website. This is me talking, but they cut corners. It's no surprise. We all know that IKEA they do have very affordable furniture, but when you walk into their store, it's not the same thing as walking into a Restoration Hardware, for example. You're walking into a warehouse. They're saving money in certain places so that they can ultimately bring their prices down a bit. So I'm going to use that to start off and kind of walk you through what an emotional curve for IKEA looks like. And I'm not going to take too much time on this because I'd rather focus our time and effort on an actual gym's emotional curve. So this is what an emotional curve looks like. And what you can see is that on the side, along here, you can see the customer satisfaction rating. So that satisfaction rating is ultimately the emotions that customers are feeling while they're interacting with your business. So At some points, they might be at an emotional high, and at some points, they might be at an emotional low. Then along the bottom, you have the time. So over on the left side, we have the beginning of their journey, and over at the right side, we have the end of their journey. So I'm going to walk you through it short and sweet. You decide that you need to go to IKEA, and all is super exciting. You can't find a parking spot. Finally, you find a parking spot. You walk into the store, and you realize that you're on a forced round tour. They are making you walk around this massive warehouse. You think that you have a 2-hour journey ahead of yourself, and you realize that, oh my God, you're stuck in a path of having to see everything that you don't actually care about because you just went there to buy a couch. So you're forced in this round tour, and at the beginning, it's a bit overwhelming. So you're at an emotional low over here. And what we call this emotional low is a valley. So you start off, you begin walking through, you see some cool things, you're overwhelmed, and then finally you find that couch that you're looking for. And you're super happy because that couch just happens to be priced super, super low. So you've gotten everything that you've wanted. IKEA has given you their promise, and they're offering you a couch at a super low price. This is IKEA's emotional peak. They've poured all of their company's efforts into making sure that this is your happy point, that when you see the price tag, you are extremely satisfied. So that's a high point for you. You're at an emotional high. And then, you have a couple questions. You want to ask about the fabric. You want someone to help you take measurements. And you realize that while you're looking for someone, there's no staff on site. There's almost nobody there. This is an emotional low point for you. It's hard to find available staff at IKEA, and IKEA has strategically planned this out. They've actually intentionally made sure that you can't find staff because that's one way that they're cutting corners, as I say, or that they're saving money. They're saving money on staffing in order to keep their prices low. Imagine if suddenly IKEA had 100 times more staff, you'd be a lot happier, but your prices would also be a lot higher. So, you get through it, you find that person, you ask a few questions, you continue your round tour, you get your boxes at the end of the store, and then it's time to check out. And oh my God, you're stuck in a 1-hour lineup. Once again, you realize that there's not enough staff for the volume of people waiting to check out. Again, this is another intentional valley that IKEA has planned out. They want you to be frustrated at this point, if any, because they're not hiring staff members. They don't want to have a massive staff team because they want to keep their prices low. So finally, you get through checkout, you're at a high, and then we all know what happens next. This is really the emotional roller coaster. Once you get home, you start building your furniture, you realize that you're fighting with your partner, you've lost a couple screws, and you need to go back and whatnot. We all know what happens at the end of IKEA's emotional journey. Maybe you shed a few tears, hopefully you don't. But ultimately, this expresses the kinds of interactions that you have and the emotional reactions that you have when you're working with IKEA. So that leads me to my next point, which is that it's normal for your business to have valleys and peaks, as we've just seen with IKEA. They want you to be super pleased when it comes to pricing. They don't want you to be super pleased when it comes to talking to a person in their store. Your job as a gym owner or as a business operator is to understand which valleys and which peaks contribute to your core promise. What is it that you want to offer your customers the most of? Where do you want them to be the happiest or to see the most value? And it's your job as the business owner, as the gym owner, to plan out these peaks and valleys intentionally. What I will say is that it's normal to have valleys, but there's always things that you can do to ease the pain that your customers might feel in those valleys. So IKEA, for example, while they might make it hard to find a staff member in their store, they do offer self-guided computer screens, and they have a really clear website to show what it is that they offer and to provide more information than you might find while you're in the store. So there are these quick and easy wins that you can implement to help raise the valleys to be at a closer level to the peaks, so that you don't create these nightmares in your customer experience, but really you offer things to ease the pain throughout the journey. So we've talked about IKEA, we've talked about the emotional curve. Now let's relate it to you guys. Let's bring it a bit closer to home. Jared's going to walk you through an example. We did a ton of research and we read hundreds of reviews online, actual customer reviews of different gyms across the United States. We then tallied up the results and developed an emotional curve, and I'll let Jer speak more about this.
It's interesting, Dan. We've all been through the roller coaster at IKEA, but it's cool to see that it's actually deliberate. It's planned out. I don't know how that makes me feel the next time I'm there, frustrated about finding staff or building things, but so be it. So as Dan said, we've translated this into a typical gym environment. Now, of course, this might not be the exact case for you, but like Dan said, it's the case for hundreds of gyms that we've reviewed on Google, on Yelp. This is what parents are saying. We know about the emotional roller coaster that you and your parents are going through, and so we hope this is interesting for you to see it mapped out, and again, be able to plan for these peaks and valleys. So it starts at whether they're on site at your gym or on your website looking for things. That's where their emotional experience is going to start with you. We've seen some gorgeous websites, others, let's just say, that are working on it and getting there. And typically it's not enough to make or break the decision to sign up with you. And so the average feeling at that point is really right in the middle. And that leads to the second point, which is price. It's the first valley. Call it a necessary evil. You can't offer free classes, obviously. Parents knew there would be a price, but when they get there, I can imagine it's rare that they say, "Oh, I would have paid twice as much for your classes," right? It's typically a sore topic that you kind of have to go through. But that leads to the next point, which is the peak in this case. And you're winning them over with the quality of your programs. Again, whether they're on site and actually see your classes happening, or they're online on your site, looking through your program descriptions. By the way, if this is not something you're already doing, really selling and showcasing the programs that you have, you definitely have to do that. And so this, we see it as a high point in their experience. They're ready to go, and that leads them to actually committing and registering for those programs. Now, this is the ultimate low point, again, backed up with hundreds of gyms. It's really cool to see that it's really the reason we exist, is to offer this for gyms that can't really do it on their own. And so registration, again, if they're on site, having to fill out forms and paperwork and give you their banking information, or online, kind of to find the class that first interested them and then register for it, it's typically always going to be difficult for parents to get through, requiring a lot of admin work. But again, you win them over. Another peak is the quality of your coaches. Again, if they're on site, they see your coaches in action. If they're online, I hope you're giving bios on your coaches, making it feel like a family, showing the awards and the experience that your coaches have. And this typically excites parents. They're continuing for the year. They're happy with you. And that leads to another journey, another valley in their roller coaster with you, which is communication. Now, I hear this every single day. This, to me, is a good problem to have. If your parents are thirsty for information from you and they care and they want to know what their kids are up to, how they're progressing, they're obviously going to reach out and they're going to ask you these things. And sometimes it's more administrative things like, reminding them of when their classes or the size of their kid's uniform or whatever. But often it's just, how's my kid doing? I want to see this. They want to live vicariously through their kids. And so it's noticeably tough for gym owners to respond to that and give parents everything that they're looking for. But again, you survive that, leads to another high in their emotional curve with you, which is competitions. End of the year comes. This is what they've been working for all year long. Competition season. Sometimes they're traveling. It's fun. I hope competitions go well and you guys and they finish on the podium. And that is the second highest peak, only to the end of year kind of realization, which is the life lessons that they've learned: perseverance, discipline, athleticism, variety of things that parents, really, this is why you're in business, is to give these things. And so I hope it comes together for their parents and in a way ends their journey on the highest point. They're happy with their investment with you, and it leads them to future years.
So the interesting thing, Jer, is that this isn't actually the end of their journey. If you think about it, once someone has learned these life lessons, they're going to want to come back. So the whole thing can actually start all over again. Maybe you don't start off at the facilities point, but you're going to start off, you're going to lead them back to this price point where they re-explore the programs that you offer, and they're going to try and sign up their kids for other things. Now, we looked at this, and again, this is based in actual customer reviews that we read on hundreds of gyms across the United States. So this is real information. What, again, like what Jer mentioned, is that this might not be an accurate representation of your specific gym, so don't take it like a prescription, but it's a fair representation of the average based on the data that we've seen. The interesting thing about this is that when you look at the average trends, we kind of identified this interesting point here, that everything on the upper half of this chart is really all about the kids. So the kids are the ones that get to experience these emotional highs. They get the good programming, they get the good coaches, they get the fun of going to competitions, and they're the ones that get to learn the life lessons. By the same token, all of these emotional valleys kind of impact the parents. They're the ones paying the price. They're the ones that need to go through a painful registration process, and they're the ones that have difficulties with communication. So that is the perfect liaison to lead me to my next tip. And I obviously love tips, but your gym's emotional curve can help you plan out how to retain more of your customers. So, like I said before, if all of your valleys are affecting the parents, keep in mind that those are the people that are really the decision makers. They're the ones that are paying the price and signing up their kids to your activities. If they're always unhappy in their journey with you, they might start to explore other offerings or other gyms. So really identifying this emotional curve and doing your best to raise these valleys as much as you can really make a difference. So we've spoken at length about the theory. Now it's time to give you guys some tools in order to put this stuff into action. So like we spoke about, we read through hundreds of different reviews. We really put a lot of time and effort into building an emotional curve. It doesn't need to be that intensive. This is something that you can easily tackle in an afternoon, for example, if you have a bit of time. So we're going to give you some tools on how to build your own emotional curve as a starting point. The first point is gather feedback. Nowadays, there's tons of interesting free tools that you can use to read reviews, to inspire your customers to write reviews, to do online surveys. We've listed some of the tools below. There's a lot of free survey tools out there nowadays, and most of them actually make the questions for you because it's pretty standard across whatever type of industry you operate in. Customer review surveys are always very similar. So it can take 5 minutes to set up a survey and send that out to your customers. Another really good source of gathering feedback is just talking to your staff members, whether it's the front desk staff, your instructors. Ask them for the compliments they get, the complaints they get, whatever it is. All of this information and their verbatim feedback is really, really important for you guys to consider. So once you've gathered a bunch of feedback, extract some commonly mentioned themes to identify your peaks and valleys. So we did this on our chart where we were explaining what we identified as some of the peaks and valleys, things like the programming, the coaching, the facilities, the registration process. These are some of the things that we identified. It might be different for your gym. You might have other benefits or other pain points or other stages in the journey that you provide. So it's up to you to identify and extract these from the feedback that you hear. Next up, assign an emotional value to help you score each stage. So don't worry, this sounds a bit arbitrary, but we actually are going to give you guys a free tool, which is an Excel template. And I believe that it's listed already in the handouts section. Don't open it right now, but you guys should explore it more later. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. This Excel template actually helps you take these themes that you've identified for your peaks and valleys and attribute a number to them so that the next step will allow you to draw it on a timeline. And this is where it's really important. It's all about the visualization. Once you have an emotional curve and you can actually visualize it and see it in your face, this is where you can start strategizing. And most importantly, you can start actually communicating the results to your other staff members as well, the other stakeholders that are there with you, whether it's the coaches, the front desk staff, the co-owners, whoever it is. One of the most important things is to be able to communicate all of this to your other staff so that they can help bring your vision to life. So those are just some quick and easy wins in order to help you build your own emotional curve. Like I said, it could be one afternoon's worth of work, sending out a feedback one day and then spending a couple hours the next day to do all of this footwork. It's really not something that needs to take super long. So once you've built your emotional curve, you've identified some peaks and valleys, now it's your time to shine. This is where you get to put your work to the test, and it's all about building new loyalty strategies to improve your valleys. So like we said, it's normal to have peaks and valleys, but it's important that you try and minimize the negative impact of those valleys and you try and bring the emotional lows to an emotional high. So I'm gonna let Jer kind of dive in, and we'll start off using the emotional curve for the typical gym that we've built based on our research. We're gonna talk about how to improve these values a bit.
Right. So as Dan said, the high points of this roller coaster that they go through, those are the reasons you start a business to begin with, is to offer those services. The low points, often they're thought of as just necessary evils, things that you have to do. Of course, nobody opened a gym to, and even really thought about registration or communicating with parents. Those are things that come up, and they're just kind of requirements of doing your job. But really, there are ways to smooth out those valleys. The first one being price. And so that's a necessary evil, if you want to call it that. The price isn't going anywhere. It is what it is. It's the cost of doing business. But there are still a lot of ways to just make it easier for your parents to pay in their own way, in ways that make them comfortable. Credit card, e-check, and of course, automating that payment so they can pay from the comfort of their homes. They don't have to call you up or wait for you to process those payments. Secondly, is spreading out those payments over time. Just as you do with tuition, charging them every month, you're not charging upfront for the year. You can do that for other things that you're offering as well, for camps and for competitions and coaching fees and all the things that you're charging. You don't have to make it difficult for parents to pay right away. You can actually spread those out in installments and in different ways. So we've actually built a tool for that. It's called subscriptions. It allows you to automate anything that you're selling, really, monthly tuition and the other things that we mentioned as well. And third, there is really being transparent and upfront about the costs. You have to make it clear. You don't want parents asking questions and not sure how much they're being charged every month. Fourth, I guess it's easier said than done, but of course, try to avoid making mistakes when processing payments. Have a system in place that happens the same way, a controlled system that no matter what happens, that's what's being charged every single month. And lastly, automating the entire process, not just payment, but registration as a whole. I guarantee you, no matter what the circumstances are and restrictions and kind of difficulties that you guys have in place, there is a way to automate that in the way that you want. And obviously, that's our job to show you how.
Ultimately, one of the important things just to note here is you don't want your interactions to be about chasing payments or fighting on price with people. You want your interactions to be on understanding how their kids are loving their classes or gathering feedback, things like that. Don't make it about chasing payments.
That leads to the next value, which is the registration. Again, we talked about this being the biggest low point. Again, very cool to see that the market is, backing up the reason we're all working here. But again, since it's the biggest value for your parents, this should mean the highest motivation for yourselves to kind of fix this, to smooth out this value. And so just as we talked about on price, make it easier for parents to register from the comfort of their home. We're in 2019, they're all going to be on their phones. They don't have to drive down or call you up. They should be able to register and pay in the way that they want, at 10 o'clock at night after dinner. And the same thing goes for everything else that you offer, not just tuition, but memberships, registration fees, camps, as we talked about. Everything that you guys offer should be able to be done online.
So, I mean, we're Amelia, and one of the trends that we've noticed is that healthy businesses typically run about 80 to 90% of their transactions or their registrations online. We live in an Amazon world. Everyone's used to buying things and having that book show up at your house instantaneously almost. People are used to buying things online, and they don't want to necessarily call or show up in person anymore. It's much faster and more. It's just more user friendly if they can buy things at their own time online wherever they are. And we've actually seen a lot of businesses come to us because they're not doing enough of their registrations online, and then once they start, they're super happy and they're actually able to grow more because they're spending less time on these in-person transactions.
Yeah. And that really means everything that you guys are selling, again, in that way, but online together in the same place. We've seen gyms use one system for their tuition, another system for their pro shop, and maybe it takes their parents to another page, another system entirely, or maybe even just a manual process to manage private lessons. Why can't everything be in the same place and again done in its own way, flexibly, in the way that you want it, in the way that parents want to buy? And so having everything there in the same place Registration, it's the low point. We don't want to call it a necessary evil. Why can't registration as a whole be a pleasure, be enjoyable, be enough to bring parents back year in, year out? And truly, we compare it to Amazon, be as similar as it is to buy a book or anything. The last valley that will try to help improve is parent communication. We talked about this. It's a good problem to have, but again, something that you want to try to smooth out. And so better communicating with your parents can mean building a community. It's not something you have to do all in one shot at the end of the year. There are quick wins, as Dan put it, that you can do over the course of the year to better engage parents, keep them in the know. Like we said, they want to know what their kids are up to. I've seen this happen in Facebook groups. I've seen this happen in emails. Sometimes gyms will even have another Facebook group, not just for kind of marketing themselves, but connecting better with parents. And so include pictures, feature their kids in newsletters, make it fun, give out badges and certificates. A lot of gyms are doing this for skills. They actually record a video and post it online of the new skill that a new member got. Email marketing is a big one. Doesn't necessarily have to be a big expense. There's a lot of free tools for that out there. Amelia is going to help you with that as well. And really, the big thing is the end of year. I've seen parties and banquets and parents' nights where you invite members to come and have fun, obviously. Now, what's important to see here, it's not just an investment to boost loyalty with your existing members. It'll come back around. As Dan said, word of mouth is huge. What are the chances a parent invites their friend and their friend's kid and says, look what my kid's been up to all year long. Their gym's having an open house tonight. And so the investment is double there in that it increases loyalty in your existing members and increases the chances that you get new members as well.
So with all of that, we've kind of built a revised emotional curve in a way, and I'm just going to call it out, but we're being super modest here. So, we've moved registration far up from that emotional low. We've moved it up to a higher point, but we're still being really modest by putting it only here. What I will tell you is that we've actually, in the last 6 months, we ran a survey with over 1,500 respondents. And the feedback actually shows numerically that the registration process can be as enjoyable as programs. We can actually move this even higher up to an 80 on this scale. And again, this is what our data shows. We ran a survey and that's based on over 1,500 responses. So really don't underestimate the power that you can get out of amazing new tools and some quick and easy wins. So, like we said, price, it'll always kind of be that thing which is the hard to touch element of your business, but there are things that you can do to make it easier. Registration, easy, quick win to move that up. Offer online registrations, make it easy for parents. Process transactions online. Don't make your interactions about chasing payments. With parent communication, quick and easy wins. Offer some events at your gym. Interact with parents. Give them a calendar. Allow them to log in and see their kids' activities. Do whatever you need to ease that parent communication with some quick and easy wins. My final message to you is a customer experience that is designed based on your customers' feedback, and I'm going to stress this, based on your customers' feedback, will absolutely boost your customer loyalty and at the end of the day, your profitability as well. All of these things have an impact on your bottom line. If you're saving money in certain areas, you'll be able to reinvest it elsewhere. And hopefully over time, you'll actually be able to grow your gym. We know that a lot of you are in this business because you want to share life lessons with kids. You want them to learn valuable skills. If you're able to grow and you're able to offer this to more kids, what is there that's any better than that? If you can show parents that you're designing your business based on their feedback, they're going to be engaged, they're going to love you, they're going to want to come back, and they'll probably get their friends to join as well. So some next steps for you. We've talked about some of these things already, but I'll just reiterate it. As a business owner, as a gym owner, determine what it is that you value the most in providing to your customers. Is it your facilities? Is it your coaches? Is it your competitions? Is it your programming? What is it that you value the most? Then once you have that in mind, educate your other peers and start to build your own emotional curve. Once you've built an emotional curve, this will identify the peaks and valleys that you have in your business. And again, build your emotional curve based on where you are now so that you can really identify future opportunities. Do it based on feedback, send out a survey, it's quick and easy. Build your emotional curve. And then once you've done that, determine how you can continue growing your peaks and minimizing your valleys. Really pour your effort into your peaks. Implement some quick and easy wins to bring those valleys up from emotional lows to emotional highs. And that's kind of where you can take it from here. The last point that I will mention is that, I put it at the bottom here, but it's a continuous journey. All of this isn't something that you do just once and then call it a day. Building an emotional curve or understanding your customer's experience and your customer's emotional journey is something that you should be evaluating regularly. And I'm not saying that you need to build an emotional curve every 2 months, but it's a really interesting exercise that you should probably do every year, every couple years, every year and a half, something like that, just to kind of give you a health check over your own business to see how your customers are feeling and where you can improve. Or maybe, in a perfect world, maybe you're doing everything amazing and that's fantastic. It's really important that you know that so that you can continue pouring your effort into where you want it to matter. So that ultimately ties up our takeaways for you today and some of our tips and tricks. I will say that if you ever do want Amelia's help to improve your gym's customer experience, our line is open. We're open for the conversation. We would love to help you out. We have a ton more tips and tricks where this came from. We put a link here. So if you click on this link, it'll ask you just a couple questions and we'll receive your information and someone from our team will contact you within 1 business day. We're really good at that. We have a bunch of people here, just like Jer, who are at the other end, and we'd be happy to help out and start a conversation, get that conversation going. So with that, you guys will have this link. We're going to send out the presentation afterwards in a follow-up, and we are more than happy to take some of your questions now. In case there was anything that came up throughout the presentation, we'll take a few minutes. Feel free to write in some things, and we'll do our best to answer them on the spot. We'll give it a few minutes. So we have one question here. If I'm a small gym, does customer loyalty and do your tips really affect me? I love this question. So, we talked about this and we've shown you this emotional curve, and nothing is to say that if you're a small gym, this doesn't affect you. If you're small, you have infinite room to grow. And that's something that I really, really do want to stress, that by implementing some of these quick tips and tricks, there's some really quick and easy wins that you can do to make sure that you're spending your time, effort, and money all in the right places to ultimately win over new customers, create loyal customers, get that return business, and ultimately help your business grow. If you only have 40 families that have joined your gym, there's no reason that you can't get to 120 or even 200. And then, in a perfect world, maybe you'll get so big that you need to open up a second location. I think these are all probably things that you guys want to strive for. If not, that's also okay. But customer loyalty, no matter how big or how small you are, it's equally as important. We can take some more questions. We'll wait around a few minutes. I got a question. How can we get a recording of this webinar for someone who missed it? Very easy. We are going to send everything to you right after this presentation. So you'll get an email with the recording and the handouts as well. We will be in touch. Fear not, if they weren't on this live presentation, you can absolutely rewatch it. You can send it to your friends, family, whoever it is that you want to be able to see it. I got another question here. Does Amelia offer reports that can help on gathering data on customers?
I'll take that one. Absolutely. Another good question. It obviously depends on what the reports you're looking for, but the answer is absolutely yes. There's financial reporting automatically inside of Amelia. There's rosters and attendance. You have a client database, kind of like a CRM, that gives you all of your parents and kids and skills and purchases that they've made. And it's a full database, entire history that you can, of course, take out and actually use that insight, right, to market to those parents, to see who hasn't come back. So absolutely, that's a very good question.
We got another question saying, I'd really like to have an easy online registration and payment software. How can I get in touch with an Amelia salesperson? Super easy. Like we have in the last slide of this presentation, there's a direct link. So you're going to receive the presentation. Don't hesitate to click that link. And someone from our team will reach out to you within 1 business day. As well, if you don't want to wait until then, you can go to amelia.com. And there's a contact us button in the top right corner of the site. It's the exact same form, it's the exact same contact info. Fill that out and we're happy to get in touch with you as fast as possible.